Our next speaker, though, is Chef Christine Cushing. And I'm proud to say she is a graduate here of George Brown College Culinary Program, and with honors, I might add. Did you remember that part? In addition, though, to her training and education here, she also moved to France, where she continued her education and had a career working in professional kitchens. At some point, Christine decided that her experience, her immense charm and enthusiasm, which you're going to find out very soon, people came calling from television, and that's where she's been for about the last 20 years, educating us and teaching Canadians and showing us how to cook. Most recently, Christine was nominated for Best Host of a TV series for her new show, Confucius Was a Foodie, which airs on National Geographic Asia. And I have seen some episodes here. I don't know, the power of the internet. They're so much fun. And if I get a chance to see them somewhere on the World Wide Web, do that. They're fantastic. Christine and her crew, because she traveled to 8 countries to film this series. She's the best-selling author of 3 cookbooks, has a line of artisanal food products. Her philosophy has always been simple. Start with the best ingredients, have fun, and share everything you know about food. Ladies and gentlemen, Christine Cushing.
Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I always love coming back to George Brown. It feels like I'm here every week for something, so that's really great. What I want to share with you is a perspective from my culinary journey of many years, even before I started doing television. The journey of cooking in a kitchen, really showing people how to cook at home, taking people's questions, because I do get a lot of questions about what should I do in this crazy time. There's so much information out there, so I really wanted to give you my take, because I think from a culinary perspective, it's so different from the statistics and all of the great science that you guys do, which is important. It's really great. So I'm hoping that technology is going to be on my side, so I'm going to press this little button and see what happens. Does anything happen? No? Yes? Oh, okay, great, awesome. There's a picture of food, yay! All right, so my theme of this whole day is really about being the boss and owning your kitchen. I think the power of the person at home is so vast because there's just such an array of information out there that you really want to do what works for you and don't worry about the trends. This is a falafel dish that I make. I love making falafel at home. I get a lot of requests for this recipe, by the way. But it's really about owning that and doing what works for your family and not worrying about the trends. So these pictures I see are in a whole, they're kind of discombobulated a bit, so I sent them in a certain order, but we'll go with the flow. I'm good on my feet. So this is what I really took this picture was about eating in color. I think that the Mother Nature has this great array of colors, and we tend to stick to just a few little bits. So you can see here how much gorgeous color in food there is. And if I'm shopping, and if I'm actually with people shopping, I'd say, look at all these amazing colors. It's just saying, buy me, I look so great. Here is a dish that I love to make to really illustrate how we can eat. What does healthy mean? So I really have a beef with sort of the word healthy. And I say to people, all right, what does healthy mean? Is this healthy for me? Is this healthy? Another one of my least favorite words is detox. Don't get me started on detox. Please don't get me started on that. So we'll leave detox for a while, but healthy, I think everybody's just sticking that moniker on packaged goods. This is healthy, this is natural, what does that even mean? So I always, again, try to bring it back home to say, we at home have the opportunity and professionals have the opportunity to just give people simple, sound advice. This is a steamed piece of halibut with some Swiss chard, a few veggies on top, and I put a little herb oil just to show what does something that's nourishing, nutritious, what does that look like? Another example of that is this amazing purple cabbage that I absolutely love to eat. And don't be too concerned about what is, what's the perfect way I'm supposed to make this? What does the official way, this is a borscht, what I would call a borscht, but it's my take on a borscht. So I think that in a lot of, I have a cookbook that's called Fearless in the Kitchen, and this is exactly what I talk about. Sometimes the recipe can bog you down. It's like, I don't have this ingredient, I don't have that ingredient. Here, it's just letting loose and saying, okay, I've got cabbage, I got some onions, let's just make something simple, and I think that's a good example of that. Technology, be my friend. Okay, we're going back. All right, colors, back to colors, and let's talk a little bit about tomatoes. We are tomato obsessed in our family, and this is an heirloom tomato salad with some lentils. It's sort of just a little take on tomatoes, which I love. You can see the color, again, nature telling us there. My husband is obsessed with tomatoes, so I need like some signed papers from all of you to take it to him to say, stop eating tomatoes and asking your wife to make it in January or February, because what's the point of that? So when we talk about heirloom, there was a question before, and technology. This is where I have a challenge with that. So now, because heirloom tomatoes have, are back in fashion, now we see heirloom tomatoes that are greenhouse or hothouse produced. I mean, there's absolutely no flavor in them. Again, it just looks like an heirloom tomato. So I think that it's every step of the way we as consumers need to understand what these things are and vote with our fork. Because an heirloom tomato, to me, is something that's grown in the ground, that's 50 generations of a seed, that when you taste that tomato, it's just tomato, baby, it's tomato. Here again is talking about how do we take those colors and get some inspiration. Because I think at home, again, what's nourishing, what's nutritious for my family, I can get bored. People can get bored. I'm out of ideas. What am I going to make? What can I make? This is a Thai curry with a little steamed rice. It's all vegetarian. And it's about just maybe getting some helpers from what's available in the grocery store. A little Thai curry paste will take this up a notch and really put the power for the home cook and get them to be more enthusiastic and more excited and not have them reach for the packaged foods. This is an example of really how I like to cook. Cooking my way, again, not worrying about the trends. This is a brown rice salad with some Brussels sprouts, and it's so satisfying, this dish. This is something that can be made in advance. It's beautiful when you make it, but then it's great for a lunch. My husband is sort of the envy of his office because he comes in with those little stacks of goodies, and his associate always says, what are you talking about? You have 3 meals a day. Your wife's feeding you breakfast and lunch and dinner. But this is just an example of something simple you can make. Again, it's nutritious and it has staying power in the fridge. Oh, let's go back to that. Trends. Poor kale. I mean, poor kale. Kale was really it, right? Everything about kale. It's all about kale. And now, not so much kale. Now it's all about cauliflower. And that's the whole point. I say, trends will come and go, but food is not like fashion in the sense that, skirts are this length, sleeves are this length. Food, yes, there is a trend in terms of what makes something modern, what makes it current. But if your family loves a certain vegetable or, you want to try certain things, don't be so concerned. I mean, every year you can't just make breakfast, lunch, and dinner out of the it thing, Cauliflower, we're going to be sick of cauliflower next year. I totally tell you that for sure. Fish we're going to talk about a little bit later, but again, this is a style of cooking that I love that's simple at home. It's just simply done on the barbecue with a little bit of olive oil, and this is really from my Greek Mediterranean roots, and I don't worry too much. We love it, and I do it often when I can find great fish. This is, again, another example of eating in color. You get, this is a slaw where I feature so many great vegetables. There are yellow beets and red beets there. That's so fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about detox. I mean, I don't know as nutritionists how you guys deal with this. Everything has the word detox in it. what does that really mean? And for consumers, I'm always very reluctant. I never post anything that says, you know, this is now about detox, because is there any real evidence that shows that eating, I don't know, a couple of days of this is going to detoxify your body? Our bodies are designed to, you know, detoxify ourselves. The liver does its job, but you know, so I say be wary of all of these things that are on the shelf that say detox. It's the magic pill. What is that? So that's part of my stay away from the fads. Back to my salad. Back to that. Back to that. Do we have another file here? Okay, we're going to another file. All right, so while he sets that up, let's talk a little bit about gimmicks. And let's talk about the keto diet. Let's go there. So I saw on online, because I try to look at, you know, what are people talking about? What is the thing? So, oh, this is a perfect thing. So this is my cauliflower mac and cheese. The inspiration for this dish was a keto version of this, which I looked it up. So there's no pasta in it at all, of course, because you can't have any grain, no wheat. And it's essentially just cauliflower, but what it is cream cheese, whipping cream, 2 kinds of cheddar, butter, and that's something that we're supposed to eat. That's the thing. Have we fallen on our heads again? I don't know. Did Atkins not take us to the right place? So I always say these fads, we've got to kind of distinguish between trying to lose weight, you know, you're trying to fit into your dress, you're winning an Academy Award. I mean, we get caught up in this craziness, you know, I got to fit into my Spanx and whatever, so I'm going to, you know, drink lime juice and maple and chili. But when I saw this recipe, people were like, this is the best thing ever. And I said, really? We're going to eat, you know, cauliflower, cream cheese, whipping cream, butter? It just makes no sense to me. So this was my take on it, where I reduced the amount of pasta. So it's kind of a little play there because you have bow ties and the cauliflower. So I doubled the cauliflower, reduced the amount of pasta. It's lower in fat. There's no whipping cream or anything like that. And it was absolutely delicious. So that's a way that you can tailor these fads. Let's talk about bread. So I really want to advocate not making food our enemy. We've come to this place where certain foods have become our enemies. So how did bread come from being really the staff of life? It's in the Bible. I mean, it's the staff of life. It's the thing that sustained generations for thousands of years, to everything that ails us. Everything bad is all about bread. My take on this is really that I think we're maybe not asking the right questions. I think that what's happened in the last 60 or 70 years, and I've been a bit obsessed about this too, really finding out what is happening with bread and grains. So what have we done differently in the last 60 to 70 years? We're obsessed with monoculture, which is depleting the earth and the soil of nutrients. It has altered the grain, no doubt. We're kind of saying no to the bran and the endosperm, where all the nutrients are, because it spoils and it can't sit in a silo for 10 years. Then, wait, don't order yet. We are adding chemicals to the bread to even up the gluten factor more so that it rises in, you know, a nanosecond. Oh, it's ready, the cake's ready, take it out. The bread's ready, let's take it out. So what is all of this doing? I think that, you know, in this room there's just some amazing minds which we can really come together and say, how do we convey that to the consumer? Because I think somehow we want to miss all of those steps, all that important stuff, and it's just about bread is bad. I think those are the questions we should be asking. What have we done, and is that sustainable? I have a lot to say about bread, needless to say. So food being our enemy, if we think back, there was a time when eggs were our enemy, you know, so the science is just constantly going back and forth. I can't tell you how many questions I get. You know, there's a People in my family, we've had a lot of heart conditions, so it's like, well, I can't eat eggs. So my mom now, she went from not eating eggs to eating, I should eat 3 eggs a day, and I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. So it's this whole, you know, we're going back and forth and swinging. So we have to be careful about that enemy fundamental, because it's all about the moderation. This is a way, coming from my home country of Greece, barley is huge. I think one of the solutions, again, is going back to some diversity of crops. Barley is great. There's a lot of nutrients in it. And again, we might not be the first, it might not be the first thing we think of, but there's a lot of value in just thinking in our minds, how do we diversify from that? I'm going to go Greek on you now. I'm going to talk about Hippocrates, and it's incredible, but thousands of years ago, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. And how did we lose our way with that? I show you these beautiful beans, Romano beans or cranberry beans, so nutrient rich. Some people will, you know, there are some diets that say, oh, you can't eat beans, you can't eat any grains. I mean, where do we come to that? It's just, we have to start thinking and continue to enforce this idea of food in its totality, not in compartments. We tend to just think of these things in little compartments. Hippocrates really knew what he was doing. In France, this is a beautiful market in Amboise in the Loire. Still in Europe, in many places, people shop at markets. I mean, look at the quality and the caliber of this produce. How can this be bad? This is the idea of food being thy medicine and medicine being thy food. In Greece, same thing. This is just outside of the city of Kalamata. Some people are saying, oh, don't eat fruit. Fruit is bad. I mean, how can a home cook understand, you know, take all this information and really filter it down and make some sense out of it? Yes, taking 12 fruit, juicing them, and eating them first thing in the morning is going to spike the heck out of your sugar. But the idea of fruit and vegetables within the context of a day is definitely nutrient-rich, fiber, all of those great things. Hippocrates knew what he was doing. I'm going to now take you to France. Let's talk about moderation. I'm moderate in certain things not so much. But with food, I really am the voice of reason when it comes to that. I want to tell you about this potato dish. This is the famous Joelle Robuchon Pommes Puree. When I was in culinary school, after I left George Brown and I was in Paris, when I was a young student and I had no money, I would often go to this restaurant and peer in the window and think, oh, you know, it would be so great if I could actually have dinner here. It's not going to happen. It didn't happen. But later in life, it did happen, and that restaurant was Joelle Robuchon. I couldn't even imagine. I had no money to go to it. This is his famous potato dish. So when you sit down in the restaurant, whatever you're going to order, steak, it's generally the accompaniment. So you see everybody else getting these little red cocottes. You're like, I want one of those. The minute you lift that top and you take just one spoon of that potato, you're done. You are just done. It is so good. So I just want to tell you a little aside. I have upcoming on my YouTube channel, I have deconstructed that and I am showing you all the secrets on how to make those potatoes. Once you see how they're made, you're going to see why moderation is key. Yeah, there's a lot of butter in those potatoes. But the idea is, and you go to France and you go to Paris, people enjoy their food. And they don't eat huge amounts. You're never going to see a steak the size of your head on a French menu, on a French plate. It's really, I don't know how in North America we've come to that. So this is the best example of moderation because there's a lot of butter in it. Did I mention that? So good, though. Cooking as a life skill. I really believe that cooking is a life skill. I totally agree with Marilyn that I woke you up, right? It's good. I'm kidding. Pardon me. Food, I had home economics in high school as well, and whatever, like it or not, it is a life skill, and feeding yourself and learning, you know, what you can eat and just simple things is essentially a life skill that we should start teaching early. Because this last week, we had a couple of dinner parties with friends who have teenagers, 14, 16 years old, 2 girls. These girls are like my idols. Everything we ate, they ate. They remembered the last thing they had at our house, which was 2 years ago that I made for them. And I thought to myself, it's possible. I mean, these are teenagers on their little Instagram and, you know, insane, but they love food. It's possible to have those two things. And I think we kind of dismiss them. Your fabulous son, Benji, last night we were at dinner, and oh my God, he's 9 years old. He ate every single thing that was on that plate. He ate flowers. He ate everything. He tried everything. Okay, not every child is going to be that, but I think we just put them in the corner and say, well, let's bring out the children's menu. I think that's a huge, huge, huge disservice, and those skill sets, and more importantly, the habits are creating, I think, children who just, I don't know, see food as just a chore. You know, it's something that we just have to do. There was a recent study and this amazing video about schools around the world. So in France, I saw this incredible school. It was a high school. It was a kind of a, I don't know, I guess grade 6 to grade 9. And their lunchtime consisted of this: tables of 4. At each table, you had somebody who was like a 15-year-old, and then the youngest would be, let's say, a 10-year-old. They served courses. The youngest would go and get the water pitcher. They only drank water, and serve everybody else. And they were served multiple courses, like one at a time. They would serve like a green, and then a protein, and then maybe a fruit or a yogurt or something. That's already preparing them for the experience of dining. We're not talking about shishi foo-foo. It was simple stuff, but it showed them that food is not something that you eat standing over the garbage, you know, on your computer. It drives me crazy. Crazy. In Japan, a very similar thing. The children are part of a program where they help to prepare the food. They help to clean the school. I don't know, somehow we've just lost these values, and I think they're so important. Oh, let's go back again. I wanted to talk a little bit about my product line and why was this important, and why did I come up with this product line. I advocate simple foods, the best quality ingredients, sharing everything you know. And for me, the product line was, okay, we're having some technical, ooh, I'm going on the chocolate now. Okay, the product line was about the changing demographic and changing needs in the marketplace. People don't have a lot of time. They perhaps don't want to make a tomato sauce from scratch. So my tomato sauce starts with the best quality ingredients I could find. If you look on the back, it has 5 ingredients. It's how I would make a sauce at home. So it's really telling people, okay, this can be a head start for you. This can keep you in the kitchen. You can spend less time there. But I don't consider this a packaged good. This is a head start, something where, in fact, I don't make sauce anymore at home because the sauce is way better. So it's sort of my base for everything that I use. Same thing with the olive oil. The olive oil started the journey for me, and I have really a connection with Greece. I was born there. Olive oil to me, I think, is one of the healthiest fats. And again, there's a lot of misinformation. We're kind of pendulum swinging on that too. It's coconut oil is good. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's good again. No, it's bad. Is it good? Is it bad? What's going on? I really decided to put the handmade on my labels as part of my brand because the product is handmade. It's made in small batches. So I wanted to really convey that with everything that I do. And in terms of the inspiration, I tell people, okay, so you have this tomato sauce. If you put a little coconut milk, a little bit of white wine, and some coriander, a little bit of Thai chili paste, all of a sudden you have Thai mussels. So it's not just about opening the jar and pouring it over pasta. Similarly here, my Cognac sauce, there's a lot of vegetarians. They're both, 2 sauces are vegan and 1 is vegetarian. So when I meet people in grocery stores or on the street or they email me, this is a beautiful vegetable tagine. I know there's a growing population that has children who want to be vegetarian. But again, we don't just want to make it boring. This is an absolutely gorgeous dish. The tomato sauce, there's a little bit of ras al hanout, a little Moroccan spice blend. And just a few ingredients can take you somewhere a little bit unexpected. That's what I love to inspire people to do. Where do I get my nutritional information? I think that is a great question because chefs, we're just as confused as everybody else, and I'm a bit obsessive about, how do I find out what's going on to the best of my ability. I really avoid just looking at one thing that was written, on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, because people can say anything. So I check those sources. I have to see it written many, many, many times. But one of my favorite things to do is to actually go to the farmers, to visit them, to see, feel, touch, smell the place that something is grown. This is an organic apple orchard that we went to a couple of falls ago. And when you see an organic apple tree, it's really inspiring because you see how kind of misshapen it is, how the apples are smaller, how they're a little bit, I'm not going to use the word defective, but they're not those pristine, looking like the apple from a Disney movie that's just like ding, all shiny. But man, did those apples have flavor. And I think to go back to what Professor Kelly said about waste, etc., it's our notion that fruit and vegetables should look like they're plastic. And I think until we as consumers can get beyond that, we're never going to, just say, take this apple and eat it. It's fantastic. Just because it has a little mark on it, who cares? And so much of the produce actually in grocery stores is thrown away because of that. France, last year, I believe, instituted a no throwaway policy in their grocery stores because I've heard some really terrible things of what happens in those dumpsters behind the grocery stores. Really bad. So, you get out there, you feel it, you taste it. Seeing the farmers, these are some beautiful little tomatoes that, I mean, how can those be bad? They're just extraordinary. Another thing I love to do is to go and actually talk to the farmers. I have a big passion in learning about beef and grass-fed beef because that is a very hot topic and there's a lot of misinformation about that. So I took it upon myself, my husband and I, because he eats more beef than me, no surprise, loves it. But at some point, the whole omega-6 thing, the fact that we are feeding, some of those pictures from before are just, I mean, I really have a challenge with that. I think as a society, we have to really question how we are producing our meat. It's astonishing to me. It's catastrophic, I believe. So what is grass-fed beef? I get this question a lot. Don't all cows eat grass? Yes, they do, but it's a big but. So I went to visit this gentleman. He changed my life. His name is John Rogers. He's a grass feeding, he produces grass-fed cattle in Goderich. So we got in our car, we drove to Goderich, and we met him. And we were so excited to meet him, and in a way reluctant because we held his meat to this really super high standard. And I thought, oh my God, what if we go there and then he burst the bubble? Oh no. He was just an amazing man, and he took us through the whole thing. It was very, very natural. You can see what's happening there. He explained everything to us. We saw this beautiful cattle. So here's the thing. Canada has a lot of, obviously, grasslands. The challenge that we have is the winter. So cows eat a lot of grass. I don't know what they do in California, and that's part of the problem. It's a desert, pretty much. So what they're doing, who knows? Where are they getting that water? The challenge for us is the cold. So what he said is he was a dairy farmer all his life, his parents, his grandparents, and then he decided to get into this. I said, well, how are you doing it? What he said is there are certain breeds that don't take well in Canada here to the weather, to being fed on grass all year. They would be too lean and they just won't make a tender enough cut of meat. So he did a lot of research, and he started some crossbreeding, and he found the perfect blend of certain two breeds together, and that made for him the best grass-fed. Example for Canada. You can do two things in the winter. He says you either cut the hay, cut the grass, and you roll it, and it's almost like you're fermenting it, and then it kind of locks in those nutrients. Or you cut the grass 4 times a year, and you dry it into hay. He said it can be challenging either way, you know, if you cut it too early, if you cut it too late. So there are definitely challenges. But he said he was certified organic and 100% grass-fed, and he said that's the easiest way to do it because nature takes care of the cycle. I don't need anybody to send me feed and send me antibiotics, send me anything. The cow eats the grass, does its business, and then there it is. It all kind of feeds in. I think meeting him and understanding that really kind of brought it home for me. It still is very challenging, so I ask for you to question anything that says grass-fed. A lot of it now is a marketing tool, so I would really question it. I have a lot to say about that, I'm sorry, but it's really a topic that needs a lot of, looking into. Olive oil. You know, the idea of looking back to, rather than taking studies, I look back to cultures and real-life examples, people, what happens. Being Greek, having spent a year in France, traveled Italy quite a lot, traveled Spain a lot, and seeing the examples of people. It's one thing to say, 4 out of 5 people will blah, blah, do this, when you eat this, when you do that. I look at the Greek people, they're 100 years old, you can't kill them. I'm like, please, you had a good life, we're still here. Same in Italy. There's this amazing movie that I don't know the name of it. It's an Italian movie, a comedy, where this guy left his job in New York, wherever he was, because he was tired, and he's like, I'm gonna go away, and I'm gonna go back to Italy, and I'm gonna document the aging process of these people, and how they die. That was the movie. That was the idea. Nobody was dying. He was like, I don't have any data because you aren't dying. I haven't seen that movie, but people say it's hilarious. It's a black comedy, an Italian black comedy. Same thing in Greece. Olive oil is the cornerstone of anything that they do, and particularly in Kalamata, where my olive oil comes from. We go there every year. For the last 10 years, we've been spending a couple of weeks. This year, we'll be spending a month. Yay. Here's a big controversial thing. Everything in Greece, particularly in that region, is fried in olive oil. Gasps or no gasps? No gasps. So the idea is that a good quality olive oil made well is very heat stable. Of course, I don't tell people take extra virgin olive oil that you paid $30 for and deep fry with it. That's certainly not what I'm advocating. But in Kalamata, where the olives are produced so beautifully, ripened at just the right time, they take their second press and they use that as their frying oil. You're not supposed to be, I don't advocate frying in general, that's another moderation thing for me. But when you eat French fries at the seaside, in this place in Greece, I wish you could all come with me. You say, so this is the thing, we swim for an hour and a half, we're doing our swimming, like really an hour and a half. Okay, that's it, today is gonna be, no wine today, no fries. We sit down at this beautiful place you're under the olive trees, and you see one plate of fries just like go by you to my husband. Oh, we should have fries. I said, oh my God, you're killing me. All right, let's have some fries. Oh, well, we have to have wine too. I said, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? You take one of those fries, you're done. You cannot stop eating them. The potato is just this beautiful potato. The taste of the oil, they sprinkle a little of oregano on it. That's what gets you. Just that little sprinkle, and it walks by you, and you go, what was that? What was that? French fries. You're in. Greeks, Italians, Spaniards, a lot of olive oil. Can't kill them. That's basically it. This is the mountain. These are the beautiful hills where my olive oil comes from, in a region called Mani in the Peloponnese. Kalamata is a city. I don't know if everybody knows that. That's where the Kalamata olive comes from. This particular olive is a small called Koroneiki. Just a point of chemistry here, that all olive oil is not made the same. So certain olive types have a much higher polyphenol count. The Koroneiki in Greece has a super high level of polyphenol, and that's, you really need to be tasting that pepperiness, when you want to cough, when you have a great olive oil. And in stores, when I do demos, and I've done many of them, I always like to look at people's faces when they taste it and they start coughing. I said, that's a good thing. They said, it's a good thing? I said, yes. That tells you that that oil is alive. So you don't want to take your oil and store it away. You want to use it up. It's not like wine. Fish. I think we have to talk a little bit about fish. I think fish, also being Greek, and I absolutely love fish, and I think fish is such a big part of what our diet should be made of, but it's becoming much more challenging globally. The oceans are polluted, there's a lot more toxins. Going shopping, fish shopping with me is a bit mental. So I scour, I look, I smell, I ask a million questions. No, I don't like anything today. I'm like one of those crazy old Greek women at the fishmongers. What came in, what didn't come in. Now, is that practical for a person at home? Not necessarily. But what I say is, generally the information, I don't like to overwhelm people, and I tell them this. We are Canadian. Salmon, of course, is ubiquitous. Did everybody know that there's a salmon season? Probably the average person does not know that. Coming up, beginning of June, this is the beautiful Sockeye Salmon. Years ago, when I did quite a few things in British Columbia, I thought that the chefs out there were a bit snobby about their salmon. They're like, if it's not sockeye, it's not salmon. I thought, okay, whatever. I'm one of those people now. To me, sockeye salmon, once you taste it, the richness of that flesh, the beauty, just how nutrient rich it is, you can see by the color. It's definitely leaner, so you can't overcook it, but absolutely love it. We can't eat that year round. When it's in season, I feature that probably once or twice a week. I say this is the fish that only the bears get to eat. We're lucky that we get to share it with them. You see them on the corner of the rivers like going, this is good. Bears know what they're talking about. I absolutely love making sockeye salmon. This is it grilled afterwards. Just simply, what I do is I just grill it on one side because it is so lean. I don't flip it over at all. I just close the barbecue, 7 minutes, it's done. This is another thing from my heritage. These are sardines wrapped in grapevine leaves. Small fish. It can't be understated. Maybe out of necessity in a lot of the smaller countries, European, Mediterranean, even in Asia, they eat a lot of small fish. So the value of the small fish is, of course, high in the omega-3s that we need. Instead of buying the crazy big gallon of fish oil from Norway, which is good, I'm saying this is also a great way when they're available to get those nutrients. They're so easy to cook. They're really inexpensive, and they also carry less of all of the toxins that, as you know, the bigger the fish is, they've eaten more fish, concentrated in the mercury. So because of that, I really tend to stay away from tuna. I know they say you can have it once a week or whatever, but I have to say that I'm a little bit afraid of tuna now just because of everything that's going on. Okay. Remember I told you we were going to go back to the keto diet, and let's talk a little bit about the caveman. So this is a meal, really, in terms of the caveman diet and how that whole thing started, this is really, let's eat a huge amount of meat because we are cavemen. You know what I say to that? You're insane, is what I say to that. Why do I say that? I say that because, and there's so many people who really thought that we truly are cavemen. Okay, we were cavemen, 20,000 years ago. Hello, but we are not that species, and we don't have access to what they had. So when you say they were hunters and gatherers, they were hunters and gatherers. They're eating twigs and little things and little leaves and wild things that grow. They were not going to Loblaws and Longos to get their, berries and their steaks. So the other thing is that what's the evidence? How old were cavemen? What was their lifespan? So there's so much. That's just an example of, again, just the top line. You just read 3 things and they put it together, and then this is now an idea. So to me, is that a better way to eat dinner, or is that a better way to eat dinner? When you talk about, again, I hate the word healthy, but nutritious, balanced, this is to me a quintessentially fantastic dinner. I made this for my mom for her birthday. I typically I say the rule in our house is always have 2 greens on the table. And what does that do? Having 2 greens on the table, it forces you to not have other things because you're going to be satiated. So, and I'm not saying just 2 leafy salads. You see that there's rapini there, asparagus in season, and dandelion. So you're getting some bitter greens. You're getting a great array. And, you know, I have 2 different seafoods. I've got pepper, zucchini. I have 4 greens, but I say minimum 2 is a great way to go. So just because I think very visually, I think the snapshot of that is just such a great way of illustrating this is a good way to eat that's nutritious, that's balanced. And the question I like to ask about fad, trend, diet, is what I'm eating sustainable? Like for me as a human, can I eat the ketonic diet? I'm forcing my body to consume fat rather than sugar. Fine, if you want to lose weight, I get it, but now is this becoming like a lifestyle thing? I don't know. Speaking of lifestyle, the Greek word for diet, it's an ancient Greek word that was dieta. Dieta is the Greek word. And in ancient Greek, dieta means way of life. You knew I was going to kill you with all the, it started in Greece, but it did. Maybe the kimono didn't, but definitely dieta did. So the way of life is all in totality. This is a beautiful seaside little tavern in Crete that I visited many, many years ago, and just magical. But the experience of eating there, obviously very different than standing over the garbage can or in front of your computer or sitting in your car. Oh my goodness. Let's stop doing that. Let's not, can we just say, why are we doing that? That's bad. No eating in our cars. Unless it's a complete necessity. The Greek philosopher Epicurus was a Greek philosopher. I don't know exactly when he lived. What he said is, first, you must find someone to eat with, then you must find something to eat. Because who you eat with, your whole experience really affects it. And I know it might sound touchy-feely, oh yeah, whatever, but how do I bring that into my daily life? My dad, he used to always say, and we lived a life of, he was working nights, my mom was working, I was cooking a lot. It was a crazy household even back then. But when it was time for dinner, we sat down and we ate dinner together. And the experience of eating together is very different than just eating, just consuming food. So I think that's the whole message there. I want to thank you for spending this, whatever amount of time it was. I have no idea. How long did I talk for? 37 minutes? See, just it happens. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to do a little question and answer now. I can have some water. Thank you.
Have some water. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What skill sets do you think a family can give their children that would be essential? Like, what are 3? Like, you've taught, you've traveled, you've got family. What sort of things?
I think number 1 skill set, you should always take your children shopping. You know, where to go in the grocery store, what things are essential, to stay out of those middle aisles and go for the packaged food. So, you know, what to buy is definitely essential. And I think some basic things, like roasting a chicken for me, is a skill that can go forever. You can do so much with a roasted chicken. You know, you put it in the oven, you can do different spices.
So why then do people buy the one that's at the grocery store?
That's a very good question.
Why?
I never buy that roasted. Okay, because you can pick it up and then it's just there. Because
it's full of salt. It's full of.
I know, because it takes an hour to cook that, and I get it. That's a kind of, you know, getting, I'm on my way home, and it's an easy pickup. Yeah. I think it's also because now we're getting into this era, well, I got hockey, I got practice, I got this, I got baton, I got soccer. So I think parents are becoming just sort of...
but have we convinced ourselves, like, I don't know. We seem to find time to be 2 hours on our Instagram and everything else.
You're preaching
right?
to the converted.
So
I totally say that to people, like, oh, I don't have any time. Really, you don't have any time? And Sunday, I think Sunday, to really designate Sunday as an eating together and cooking together day.
That's a nice idea.
You know, this is the thing, and maybe we can prep some stuff for the week, because somehow we're all kind of in a haushole together. I always say, you know, my nephew visited us from Serbia, and he was with us at Christmas, and I'm like, this is not a hotel. I don't know if you didn't notice that. This is not a hotel. Like, you're 14, you got to do something. Like, am I you calling for room service tomorrow? What's going on? Yeah, so I think those things are great. Shopping, roasting a chicken, and maybe the time spent together, like a Sunday. You know, Sunday's the day that we plan for the week. What are we going to eat? Let's do a little snapshot.
And can I don't know where the chat box is, again. Okay, can I just quickly, there's one up here. What about people who are not in families, who are on their own, they're just 2 people, right?
Yes.
And all these recipes are made for more people, whatever. How, and you think, it's just me tonight. What's, you know, there's an easy way out. And
I think planning is the key. I think that Sunday nights, it happens for us too, Sunday nights, because we're only 2. I mean, okay, I'm an anomaly because I cook all the time. But Sunday night, you can do some cooking and just sort of say, you know, like I was saying, that brown rice salad with the Brussels sprouts, you can have that as a side. Then it can be, you can open a can of something, salmon, and it can be your everything. It can become a part of components of the week where you can just add to it. So you don't do the bulk of stuff when you get home. But I think part of the challenge is people are sort of that on the fly. And it's difficult. You're going to do the shopping, you're going to do the whatever. You have to kind of see the week as a restaurant, kind of. You know, how many covers are we doing for the week? Right. What's happening? Where are we going this week? In a simpler way, obviously. Right.
But I do think your point about it's a life choice, like it's a life skill.
It is definitely a life skill.
Chat box.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here. And I just wanted to add that we have Survivor night at our home. My children are in their late 20s, and every Wednesday night we watch Survivor and we cook together.
That's so great. Oh, I thought it was like a culinary Survivor. I'm like, what? Are they kicked out of the house? That's great.
But it's great.
That is fantastic. I love that.
Any questions? What should you have in your pantry? Like, and let's take, so now we've got the students, now we've got the 20-year-olds, maybe they're at college or university. What's the challenge there too? Because we all know that what's first year, the 10 pounds or whatever, and you know, that goes on.
Yeah, I think that to stay away from the inclination of mac and cheese out of a box, like to really get out of the carb-heavy idea, there have to be some proteins. Even if it's, you know, canned fish, like sardines in a can is way better to me than eating mac and cheese out of a box. You eat sardines out of a can, you eat a salad, and you're good. Maybe you know, what we do a lot is we roast whole sweet potatoes, so they're there, and then you can cut them up. You can use them even for lunch. You can use them at dinner. You can mash them. You can put them in a soup. It's about options and not going for that specifically that it's going to be carb heavy, because it's easy.
Just to, about your food product line. So labeling.
Yes.
Or just in general, I'm going to say processed product. How did you find, what was the journey for that? When you decided to do an artisanal product line, which is the antithesis of almost your philosophy.
Yes.
How did you do the research, and what did you learn from that process?
It's actually a very complex process. I thought initially, how hard can this be? You know, I'm making a tomato sauce and I'm putting it in a jar. But there's so many variables. So you have the actual qualitative variables of that I want it to be the best sauce when people open it up to go, wow, I don't need to make sauce because this tastes so great. And that means sourcing great ingredients, making sure that it's the least cooked, and then keeping within the pH to make it shelf stable. So that's all the technological stand. And then there's the cost element, you know, how much would it cost to do that? And then is somebody going to pay that price? Because I think the misconception too is you see things on a shelf, people don't understand the margins that a person touches a product, there's 20% margin. I mean, it's just it's crazy. So the margins that are so challenging, and now the stores are the gatekeepers. They don't care. They want to promote their own products. They put them front and center, and so you really have to fight that. It's very, very challenging. So then you have the cost element, and then you have who's going to make it for you by the standards that you want. Really tough again. What's their investment? Are they going to be exactly transparent and do what you've asked and how you've formulated? And then there's all the labeling. The labeling is really challenging. I mean, it's so interesting. You can say healthy, you can say all of these silly things. It drives me crazy. But the font has to be a certain thing. It has to be in French and English. So it can be really challenging, that part. There are many pieces to the puzzle, and it was a lot harder than I thought. Yes?
Are you glad you did it, though?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I mean, I've had your products, and I think they're research.
Yes. Yes.
It was great. I mean, it really was. And then you look at the label, and it's short.
Yes.
An ingredient list.
5 ingredients.
5 ingredients.
Yeah.
It's a tomato. I could read them. I understood what they all
exactly.
were. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you read this and you realize that doesn't sound like sugar, but I bet it is sugar. Right?
Oh, that's the other thing. Yes.
Yeah, and that's where the percentage.
Organic cane juice.
About the actual.
Yeah, organic cane juice. Hello, it's sugar.
Yeah. I know. It's still sugar in it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a question there. Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to say something. So Moira, actually, I graduated 2 years ago from Culinary Management Nutrition, and everything you said about labeling and how you made your product, we went through it.
Yes.
So we literally did all of that. So we had to source everything. We learned labeling with Sharon. We learned all of that. So we actually went through it, and it was just. It's hard.
It's hard.
It was really hard. It took us a semester and a half to do everything, to product test and to upscale our batches and do all of that.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is, but yeah, I appreciate all of that. So
yeah.
I just had a question though.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'm allowed. Am I? Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so you were talking about grass-fed beef and all of that. Mm-hmm. I also love beef, but when you went to the farmer and all that, so I guess how I'm trying to question is in a grocery store, if it says grass-fed and all of that, you said to question it and all of that.
Yeah, what do you do? That's a very good question. So some of the grocery stores now have grass-fed beef. What I do is I go home and I look up the farm, because to me, if it says grass-fed beef, it's not going to be a huge multinational. It's impossible. It has to be a farm or a smaller outfit. So I look that up, I research, I might contact them, I might really figure out what do they mean by that. There's also grass-fed butter now. And I ask that question, what does that mean? What do they do in the wintertime? Because there is a bit of a misconnect there, a disconnect. Is it really, or does it have to be a certain percentage grass-fed? What are the rules on that? And it's still a gray area for me, but I would say research as much as you can. And I say it's better to pay more money for grass-fed beef and eat half the amount. I just think it is, because cows are not supposed to eat corn. I'm sorry, they're just not.
You've got the chat box at your back here. And after seeing the beef stats that Kelly had for
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, at the back here. Great.
That was a good catch.
Thank you. My question is, what tips can you give people that are interested in eating healthy but might have really basic cooking skills?
Yeah.
And it might be a little overwhelming for them to try to cook everything from scratch.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, and that's part of the little shortcuts. So the idea of using my sauce, that was the idea that nobody wants to make a sauce, very few people anymore. So it's taking that little head start, so some little head start, and then maybe every week or every 2 weeks, try a new ingredient or try something you haven't used. But I think the basics, so roasting something, I truly think that roasting a chicken, because you roast a chicken, and it can be simple as just rosemary and olive oil and salt and pepper and some paprika, simple. So you've roasted a chicken, even if you're 1 or 2 people. So you roast it. The next day, you can take that apart and then put it over lettuce and cabbage and make a great salad, even for dinner. And then you can take the carcass or even take, you know, the dark meat and make a soup out of it. So, which is much easier because you have so much flavor already built. So it's about basic skills, trying to get, you know, some head starts that can cheat you, and try not to do too much. I totally agree with that. Like, keep it more simple, because it's easy, you know, on Instagram and whatever, you're like, oh, this is the best thing ever, and then people are pulling out their hair. So forget about the trends and forget about the photos. Maybe take some inspiration from that, but try and keep it to the basic thing. And then so you do a chicken that way. Then next week you put some Jamaican spice on it. Then you put some Moroccan spice. And just the same concept of roasting a chicken, but it tastes completely different with the different spices. That's a really good question, actually.
Thank you.
Do you think people put too much pressure on themselves because they see Instagram and all these photos and say,
oh yeah,
yay.
Yeah, and I think all of this social media, everybody presents themselves in this world where everything is so perfect. You know, they have, oh, like I have this, I have that, all my cookies look great. I mean, you know that they could have spent 7, you know, hours making those chocolate chip cookies and lining them all up. That's not practical. You know, I spent a whole part of my life food styling and doing TV. So for me, it's like a really fast thing, but it's also, you have to do what's in your capability, and that's meant to be an inspiration.
So to that point, since a lot of young people are on Instagram, whatever else, let's back it up even further. How young do you think children should be in the kitchen cooking or starting to get a feel? You've said take them shopping.
Yeah.
But at what point can you really think they should be learning this as a life skill?
Well, I think, you know, the younger the better. I think like a 10-year-old should already be in the kitchen and, you know, doing, absolutely, like Benji's you know, probably he was in diapers cooking, and I recognize too that not every child is going to be geared to that, and it's not forcing them, but it's just saying, hey, you know, and I think they're more apt to try things when they've gone and picked them out and themselves. But 10 years old, simple things. You're not going to say, hey, you know, man the wok when you're, you know, 9, but simple things can happen, and so they understand, oh, this is how this was made. Oh, it tastes really great. I made it myself. I think that's really important.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
One other thing that Benji has done that has been great for kids is buy them cooking tools.
That's a great idea.
He just found one of these. He just found one of these
Spiralizers?
beaters.
Oh, beaters.
The old-fashioned one that you move like this. He loves that thing. He'll get in the kitchen because he's got his little egg beater or a whisk or kitchen tools that are easy for kids to use.
No, he doesn't.
Benji?
How do you like your egg beaters, Benji? They're awesome.
They're awesome.
Okay, question over here.
Hi.
Hello. I'm one of the culinary instructors here at George Brown College in the Continuing Education Department. So
Yes.
You're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're a continuous inspiration. I got into this career when I was like older than many, but I do what I love. I love to cook and create with whatever is available. I just wanted to respond to the lady that asked the question, what if I have limited skills? We offer amazing courses in the Continuing Education Department.
Bingo!
We're here every day of the week. Your name comes up many times.
Well, that's so great. That's
I
fantastic.
love your tomato sauce. I'm Italian, and sometimes I have to say, I had it once. It was given to me as a gift, and I tried it. I'm like, oh my God.
Thank you so much. That's really
You're
great.
very welcome.
Love that.
And it's just like, this is amazing. You open it, and you can eat it with a spoon.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. And, you know, being
like
Italian,
grandma's.
that's exactly it. In fact, for Italians, what I do, there have been some Italians who want to give it to their parents, and they say the only way they'll taste it is if they open the jar, put it into a saucepan, and cover the lid. And they said they've had great success. They're like, oh, buono, questo è buono. I'm like, oh, my God. When the Italians say that, I know I'm good. So thank you for that. That's very great. Just a little aside, my dad, I talk a lot about my dad because he was my culinary inspiration, but he did, in his 60s, he came to George Brown, and he did baking course because he was, what I call him, the accidental baker. Oh my God, so bad. So bad, but he was so keen, and he was not a precise guy. I really did take after him. And he would come and then make all his little, you know, everything, his little danishes and whatever. So at any stage of life, it's a great place to come to really brush up on. It's the only place like that, I think.
Oh, good segue.
Good segue. Any more? Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Oh, James.
Yeah. No, it's okay. One of the things, actually, you kind of took a little bit about, but which is great, because they do have amazing programs that anybody can take and learn cooking. I have worked here, and it's amazing.
Have you? Your name, please? No.
I'm just kidding. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I wanted you to share, because this is something, I got to work with you for many years, different places, and one of the things that always came across, and it went through the whole place, and I experienced it here too, working here, is having fun. Food is about fun. It's about enjoyment.
Absolutely.
You said about love. It's loving food.
Yeah.
Just that philosophy. I mean, we teach cooking here, right? This is one of the best culinary schools in, you know, wherever.
Yeah.
And it can be serious, but how do you make it fun? Because you made it fun all the time. And how did you get to that point? Because you worked for some crazy people way back.
Yes, I did.
We all did.
Yes, we did. Thank you, James. So James was my sous chef on my, well, we first actually worked together at Scaramouche. I was a pastry chef and he was just starting. You just come from Australia, so years ago. Then he was a sous chef on my live show. And my philosophy, so I think, James, at a young age, because cooking was my life, it was my passion. I studied languages just because I wanted to be the good student. And then I, of course, said, see you later. I was at U of T, and I'm like, this is crazy. And then that's where I ended up here. But for me, the journey was about what really gets me excited and so enthusiastic. And I know it's not maybe for everybody to kind of embody this, but I asked the question, could you do this without getting paid? Like if somebody said, you know, could you do this for the next little while? And I don't mean just about the monetary, but do you seek that economic benefit? I'm not talking about, okay, you have to live. And that was the question I always put to myself. I'm not doing this for money. I never did it for money because, I mean, I was making very little money at the beginning. But I would show up and at the restaurant at Scaramouche, I would show up and I'm like, I got to tell this story. And, you know, it was me and the butcher. And in the morning, I'd be like, oh, Bob, you're not going to believe what happened, blah, blah, blah. And the chef would come in and be like, Christine, shut up. Get back to work. And I would be, Keith, come on. It's a great story. Nobody cares about your stupid stories. Get back to work. I'm like, they care. Look, ask Mom, they care. So that idea of the joy of cooking, for lack of a better term, the pleasure that it brought me and the just the enthusiasm and how much you can learn and how it's ever changing and evolving and where it can take you, I always put that to myself to say, I never want to lose that. And there were times, and at the end of my time at Scaramouche, I felt that kind of malaise coming over me where I looked forward and said, oh, is this it now? And I had to leave. I had to leave because I wanted to get back again that same enthusiasm and excitement. When we did the live show, I would come in. I mean, we were a crazy group, but I would say, you know, we're not doing brain surgery here. If doing a daily cooking show with some awesome people, talented, amazing, incredible, is not fun every minute, we should all leave right now because this is what's fun. You don't have the pressure. I mean, okay, things happen. Things went wrong. Oh my God, did things go wrong? But it's not like the pressure of, oh, the Michelin star and all of that. I think somehow that dichotomy of, you know, gaining those accolades and keeping the stars in the extreme example of it has made the cooking just too intense. It's food. It should be whimsical. Yes, you should understand what you're doing, but I find that it becomes just too, you know, structured, just too boxed. And obviously, I'm the antithesis of that, which you can see by my presentation. It's like bing, bing, bing. But even my pictures were out of whack, so it's a good thing that I'm bing, bing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm like, what's that? So I think it's so important in everything we do because this is a tough business. You're trying to inspire people constantly. Even in nutrition, it's challenging and it can get dry. So where's the love? You got to keep going to the love. But that's a great question, James. Thank you.
Last
yes.
question right here in the
Catchbox. Hi.
So I think we can all agree that teaching kids at a really young age to cook and to source good ingredients is important.
Yes.
And I've spoken to several educators here in Toronto and a principal of middle school recently about how do we implement a cooking program that is engaging and modern. And they've said that the biggest obstacle is not the desire for kids to cook, but money. They've said
money.
That, the biggest obstacle is money and budget, and that there's not proper or sufficient budget to host these kinds of programs, which I think is a really lame excuse.
I agree.
So how do we combat that on a policy level, on a governmental level?
I think it's a fantastic question, and it's a fantastic thing for us to all ponder, because I think those seeds are sown like at that time, you know, and so many more kids are into it now with all the television shows. They think I can do that. I mean, honestly, I've seen 10-year-olds make incredible things. And maybe those are the anomalies, but still, it's a time, I mean, for even me as a kid, cooking shows were like an entertainment, like this fun, like, wow, that's magic, look what you can do. So I think it's definitely something that collectively, somehow wherever we can push that, I think it's a great thing.
Just raising awareness?
Raising awareness, I think, is step one. And I think, you know, what the gentleman was saying before, Professor Kelly, about what happens in the States, like, I think once lobby and all of that, you know, corporations just start driving everything that we do, I don't know, we've pretty much lost, because in that sense, what's in it for everybody there? It's just about how much money can be made, you know?
Well, to your point, too, I think we were mentioning about the food policy for Canada. At this time, when we had this last year, they had just called for consultation on that, which they are still doing.
Yeah.
But the mandate comes from the Ministry of Agriculture. And to me, that's a silo.
Yeah.
And that we should be talking to education, health,
That's a case in
business,
point, right? Exactly.
Lateral and not
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
I think, yay, we're done.
Yay! Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much.